This is your lecture for 70-741, Lesson 6, Installing and Configuring IP Address Management, also referred to as IPAM. So, some key terms in dealing with this. First and foremost, IPAM, IP Address Management. This is a feature that was introduced in Windows Server 2012 that provides an administrator with the ability to plan, manage, track, and audit the use of all IP addresses and the DNS services within the network. In dealing with IPAM, we first start with IP address block. IP address blocks are the highest level conceptual entities in an IP address space. Beneath that, we have IP address range. IP address ranges are the next hierarchical level in an IP address space beneath the address block. This is followed by IP addresses. IP addresses are the individual addresses that are contained in an IP address range. Additionally, another new term for us, System Center Virtual Machine Manager, VMM. This is a management solution for virtualized data centers including Microsoft Hyper-V and VMware ESXi. Let's take a look at our IP addressing. So IPAM, as you can see, provides a single point of administration for all DNS and IP management features within an Active Directory forest. Our IP address block would be the entire range seen in the illustration on your screen. In other words, the 10.0.0.0/8 block. Within that are four defined ranges of 10.0.1.0/24, 10.0.2.0/24, 10.0.3.0/24, and finally 10.0.4.0/24. Within that is your individual address space. For example, 10.0.1.15 is a single allocated IP address. This is the concept of IP address block, IP address range, and IP address. So, understand that to deploy IPAM, first and foremost, it must be a domain member but cannot be a domain controller. Remember from our discussions, first and foremost, domain controllers should only be that domain controllers. It should be a single purpose server. In other words, it's the same way as we utilize domain controllers, we utilize file servers. The IPAM server should be just that, an IPAM server. It's not recommended to install DHCP, DNS, or any other roles on the IPAM server. It can manage IP version 6 address spaces if IP version 6 is enabled on that server. Always be sure, and this is critical with any of the functions that we do, always be sure to log on to the server with a domain account, not the local account. This is the one reason why we use a different administrator account other than the default administrator name. If you attempt to log into a member server and do not prefix administrator with the domain /, it will default to the local computer and you will not be successful in having domain access. There are additional specifications that it needs to meet. These are all basic. To be able to manage the 2008 DHCP and DNS roles using IPAM on a Windows Server 2016. Additionally, your Windows 2008 R2 systems must have the following requirements met. So when you're managing, you can deploy IPAM in one of three topologies. Centralized, a single IPAM server is deployed for the entire or whole forest. Distributed, IPAM servers deployed to every site in the forest. Or hybrid, a central IPAM server and dedicated IPAM servers are deployed. So here shows a distributed deployment. Your main site at Redmond, domain is corp.woodbridge.com. There's a subdomain of fareast.corp.woodbridge.com, europe.com.woodbridge.com, and so on and so forth. Understand that IPAM manages only Microsoft DHCP and DNS servers. It will not function with third-party solutions. It supports only domain-joined DNS, DHCP, and NPS servers. You can utilize the WID or Windows Internal Database, or for larger enterprises, it may be more efficient to connect to a Microsoft SQL server. You cannot use open source solutions such as MySQL. A single IPAM server can support up to 150 DHCP servers and 500 DNS servers. It can support up to 6,000 DHCP scopes and 150 DNS zones. So one server can host much. And it is capable of storing up to 3 years of forensics IP data, and including that data for up to 100,000 users. I would state, though, for that much data, you'd probably be much better off storing it on a SQL server. There are two main components: the IPAM server, which is collecting the data from your managed DNS and DHCP servers; the IPAM client, which provides you the interface for you to do your management and configuration. After installing the IPAM server feature, the following tasks are required to configure the IPAM server installation, and this is covered in our lab. Connect to the IPAM server, provision the IPAM server, configure server discovery, start server discovery, select or add servers to manage and verify IPAM access, and then finally retrieve data from those managed servers. There are two methods to provision your IPAM: manual or using group policy. If you select the group policy method, 3 group policy objects will automatically be created, and the name shown of the IPAM1, this is a custom object that you define this. By default, it will label your GPOs DHCP for DHCP servers, DNS for DNS servers, and so on. The IPAM1 is the prefix of the name of your IPAM. It could be whatever your environment stipulates. You can use PowerShell, invoke IPAM GPO provisioning. This is one of the first things we'll do in our lab. Once your IPAM server has been fully provisioned, there is a dedicated monitor and manage section. Within that section, there's 4 categories: DNS and DHCP servers, DHCP scopes, DNS zones, and server groups. This also allows you to break down into your address space, address blocks, address inventory, and then finally into the configuration thresholds for all those. In this section, we learned an installation of an IPAM server and the IPAM feature have specific hardware, software, and infrastructure requirements. The correct procedure for installing, configuring, and provisioning the IPAM feature in Windows Server 2016 using the group policy provisioning option. Once an IPAM server is provisioned using the group policy option, the only way to undo this is to uninstall and reinstall the feature. Once an IPAM server is installed, there are several post-installation IPAM server tasks to successfully implement the IPAM feature. To delegate administration of IPAM features and IPAM servers, it is necessary to use the correct IPAM server local security group. The IPAM Client Console is the correct place to configure and manage server discovery. The console provides the quick start selections in the overview pane. The correct procedure for creating, managing, tracking, and editing IP address blocks, IP address ranges, and IP addresses in the IPAM Client Console. Using the IPAM Client Console to monitor and under and over utilization of address ranges and scopes is carried out on the DHCP scopes pane. Also, finally, importing IP data from comma-separated value files into the IPAM database is the way to migrate legacy IP address data. Thank you very much, and we'll follow this up with our lecture on Lesson 7, Managing and Using IPAM.